Coming up next on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, Ron Richards, Win Twidow, and we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to be reviewing this right here. This is the Logitech G Cloud gaming device, more like a mini review, but I go hands-on with that. Also, Android 14 is bringing Predictive back, a feature that's shown in Android 13. It's bringing it inside of apps, and we talk about what that actually means. It's actually a really cool feature. Photo picker enhancements coming to your KitKat device if you still have one. The Pixel Fold, aka the Passport, is getting some really interesting render action. Ron has a bone to pick with Netflix and Google. We have your feedback and a whole lot more, including a very cool tip from J.R. Raphael, up next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is All About Android, episode 604, recorded Tuesday, November 15th, 2022, the Devening. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by HPE GreenLake, orchestrated by the experts at CDW, who can help you consolidate and manage all your data in one flexible edge-to-cloud platform to scale and innovate. Learn more at cdw.com/HPE. And by Policy Genius. By making it easy to compare your options from top companies, Policy Genius can help you find the financial safety net your loved ones deserve. Head to policygenius.com/AAA to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. And by SecureWorks. Are you ready for inevitable cyber threats? SecureWorks detects evolving adversaries and defends against them with a combination of security analytics and threat intelligence directly from their counter threat unit. Visit secureworks.com/twit to get a free trial of Taegis extended detection and response, also referenced as XDR. Hello and welcome to All About Android, your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Win Twidow.
Oh, yeah. Good to see you both again. Thank you so much for covering for me last Tuesday. That was unexpected. I got the flu. I wished I could be here, but you did not want me here. not last Tuesday.
The important thing is, are you feeling better?
I'm feeling better. Yeah, it's a weird flu. Like it knocked me out. There were a couple of days there where the body aches were so intense that, I mean, it was painful. And it's just kind of one of those flus that, like, even though I know I'm not like toxic anymore, I don't, all I really have is like a little bit of sinusy stuff and some like like I'm coughing and wheezing a little bit and everything. I'm just really low energy. So yes, I'm better. I'm not totally perfect at this point. We can all strive to be totally perfect, can't we?
Someday we can strive. Did you watch last week's show or listen? Or?
Yeah, I watched. Definitely checked out your review of the ear sticks.
Can you? Not so much about the review of the ear sticks. We're going to talk about it later in the show because Huyn, I want to hear about your experience. But how about that packaging?
The package. I mean, that's what I thought. Well, I don't know if we should save it, but watching you kind of do the rotate thing. Yeah. Like, I just know with my earbuds, the case, like the durability of the case is actually really important. And those things don't look too durable to me.
It's very durable.
Is it?
It's really, yeah.
It's a thick plastic. It's a thick, hard plastic.
Okay.
So, yeah. Well, let's save it because we're going to talk about it later in the show. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Hey, before we get into news, we have an opportunity to fire off some breaking news because there was some breaking news shortly before the show. So I don't know if you have that ready, Berg, but if you do, push the button. Make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
What was the breaking news? Well, if you care about systems on a chip, and specifically the systems on a chip that'll be powering the top-of-the-line premium smartphones of the next year in the world of Android, at least here in the U.S. especially, Qualcomm announced its new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 system on a chip. This time around, it's actually going to support Wi-Fi 7. So this is the first time that their chip supports Wi-Fi 7. Of course, this only really matters if you actually have a router that also supports Wi-Fi 7. So it could not matter a whole lot if you haven't upgraded your home infrastructure in a while. But still neat that they're supporting that. Outside of that, kind of the usual bigger, better, faster stats that I pulled shortly before showtime. So not a whole lot of intricate detail, but CPU performance up to 35% faster, 40% more power efficiency there, and then GPU performance up to 25% faster, 45% better power efficiency. So we'll see how it improves the devices of the future.
Devices of the future.
Devices of the future.
We will see.
Not Pixel devices of the future, because Google's going to stick with its Tensor. I was going to say not Samsung devices of the future, because often they've been releasing the Exynos, but I think the news recently is that they are actually doing Snapdragon. So
we talked about that last week, that it is assumed that they will be line wide in 23 with Snapdragon, based off some comments from their latest earnings call. Whether or not that bears truth, we'll find out in February, when the rumored date for the rollout is. But that is the way the wind is blowing. So,
and presumably, if by the time they come out or it will be announced in February, it probably would be the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. It's kind of exciting.
Right.
That 8 Gen,
most definitely would be that. Yeah.
8 Gen plus 1, 8 Gen 1 plus, whatever it is. It has. I think it's really been. I think for those that are aware and care, the 8 Gen plus 1 and the 8 Gen 1 have been very successful. I think I remember Marcus Brownlee was saying, normally no one really cares about processors, but there is legit something special about the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and 8 Gen 1 plus 1. Which order do those go? Whatever it is.
1 plus. This is getting very confusing.
The super banging extra version. So it'd be interesting to see whether this is just an incremental bump or whether it's just going to continue like a nice kind of upward trend of performance. So yay!
Yeah.
Better silicon.
Burke whispered in my ear digitally about 32-bit support for the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which, and I saw that in Ron Amadio, Ars Technica. He wrote about that this is the article that we linked to. I saw that in the headline, and I was kind of like, yeah, but I mean, right, the 64-bit's the next thing. Why is it calling out 32-bit support? I feel like
they're mentioning it to say they're not dropping it.
They're not dry. Oh, I see. They're still holding strong.
That's how I feel.
And okay, thank you for the clarification. I think you're probably right on the money on that. Because let's face it, not everybody is doing what Google is doing, making a device that only does 64-bit apps going forward. That's what Google is doing going forward. So there's a lot of other devices in the Android ecosystem that don't need to be rushed through to that level. And I'm sure they're going to get there soon-ish, but they don't need to be there right now. I think you're right, Burke. That's a really good point. This is just showing, hey, we're not quite there yet. We're not moving there anyways. Qualcomm is not. So there you go. Something to look forward to, something to find in your future smartphone of premium stature. But that is that. And with the breaking news out of the way, now we can just get to the boring news, the not breaking stuff. Let's do it.
Well, I'm ready for the boring news. This whole predictive gesture thing, I wish for it every time after I do the news.
You do?
Yeah.
Have you seen Predictive back in Android 13?
I mean, I want to go back and do my Android news segment again.
Oh, okay. Thank you for explaining your joke.
We think that every week, Bert.
I know, exactly.
If we
did not wrong.
If we didn't think that, it would be a strange news bumper. It's kind of part of the fun of the news bumper. So Predictive back. So if you have Android 13, maybe you've noticed that when you and you're using the gesture navigation, when you gesture to go back and you're inside of an app and it's going to take you home, you end up seeing this little peek through in the background, which is like your home screen. And that's kind of, but my understanding is that's the kind of the heart of predictive back, is that this AI system is better understanding what you mean when you say, I want to go back. And it gives you that little peek so that you know before you let go of your finger where you're actually going if you execute that back command. And that's a part of Android 13. Now, apparently, Android 14. This is coming, by the way, from the Android Dev Summit Part 2, the second round that you did not attend this time. But apparently in Android 14,
it's called the Devening.
The Devening. The Divination. I like
the
that.
divination of divination. I like it.
And apparently this is coming to apps. So developers will be able to tap into the predictive back system. I'm guessing so that if you're in your app and you're in one part of your app and you gesture to go back, it'll peek through the screen within that app that you're jumping to. Am I getting that right, Wynn?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised that wasn't already included. So this is all really built on the backstack. So backstack is basically what Android calls, more or less. It's not quite the history, but it's basically as you move throughout an app, it starts stacking screens on top of each other. That's a very simplified way of doing it. But like, so I go through my home, I go to like the list thing, I do go to a detail view. It starts creating a stack, which is more or less your history. It's a little more complicated than that because users can insert like different locations, stuff like that. So I was actually surprised that it didn't work because basically what it's doing is it's letting you kind of peek, like if you imagine like a deck of cards, it's letting you kind of peek past the top card to see what's underneath. So you can either like say, no, I'll take this card, please, or go ahead and you know, roll down the deck. So I was surprised at first that it really only worked with home. But I don't know. And again, this is maybe where my Android development like knowledge ends, but it should, as long as kind of a lot of the stuff that we had talked about previously when Android 13 came out that developers should do to kind of accommodate this new predictive back gesture. Presumably, if you follow the rules, you'll get this in-app peekies for free.
The peekies. You get the peekies for free.
You get the peekies for free.
Money for nothing
peekies.
and the peekies for free.
Exactly. So yeah, it's not too dissimilar from like, you know, maybe if you have an app that has had time to put animations where you can do like, you know, different screens will push each other in and out, or like crossfades or pulling up. So maybe there's just something about the system that can do that more kind of like screen shrinking. Yeah. And provided by the system. I'd love to know more about this, but I think as far as I understand it, it should just work as long as you've done your homework as a dev. I need to look into that more.
So there wouldn't be a lot of heavy lifting on the dev side of things. It just kind of changes the behavior around the back button. Yeah, or the back gesture, rather. I like the look of it. Berg was just showing a little animation that was kind of a part of, I think, the presentation, and it's using the Google Calendar app as the example. They go into, you know, kind of edit details. They end up swiping back. And when you swipe back, if you look really closely, you can kind of see a faded version of the actual calendar layout hiding in the background. And I don't know, that, you know, those are just little design touches that are really useful, but also just kind of nice eye candy. It makes things feel a little bit more three-dimensional, I guess. And I like that.
It's really funny because sometimes this is like, sausage is made, but a lot of times, so each screen is more, well, it's different nowadays, but a lot of times, many times a screen is what we call an activity. It's just literally just a bunch of stuff that is its own task. And in the history of Android dev, a lot of times if you made your activity like totally transparent, you could see the previous screen in the back just hanging out there. That's actually how one way of doing dialogues is to just have another it's basically the same thing that you're seeing. It's just that instead of having a full screen, it's transparent, so you actually see the peekies behind it. But now they're actually coordinating the peekies to make it like kind of gesture based and more interesting. So I don't know. I'm just so curious. Like, oh man, we could have had this. Like, I'm really curious why this did not kind of come as part of the original announcement, but I don't know, like, you know, deadline.
Start somewhere.
start somewhere, and now maybe it's more like maybe it's like incentivizing devs to like, hey, if you do gesture, if you actually do back gestures right, look at all this extra stuff we have.
Yeah, right. What all comes with it. And also, by the way, kind of somewhat unrelated, but I learned a new term in this article on 9 to 5 Google, falsing. Are you aware of falsing as when you swipe back and it doesn't take you where you expected to go? Is this like a common dev knowledge? I don't know. They threw it out as a reference in 9 to 5 Google. I mean,
that's something that happens.
Yeah,
I've never heard that term before. But
Neither
that definitely is an interaction that I didn't want that to happen. Right. So
when you swipe back and it ends up exiting the app instead of doing like an in-app like back maneuver. Apparently that has a word, and that word is falsing.
Well, TIL. TIL. It's like making fetch a thing. Well, we're making falsing a thing. It's like, okay, bro. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So there we go. But the news from Android Dev Summit Part 2, the Devening, isn't done because you've got more, Wen.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Have you not heard enough of my dev geeking out? Well, you're going to hear some more because now there is released the Now in Android app on the Play Store. So in conjunction with kind of this revamped format for the Android Summit, Google is kind of releasing a revamped showcase app for developers. So in the past, when we went to Google I/O more often in bigger numbers, that's awesome. The Google I/O app has kind of been like traditionally this annually produced example of the current best practices and sexiest new features that Android has to offer, as well as just being, the Google I/O app that you can use to look through content schedule. So it had like both a function, like an actual function within the app, and then also served as like an example, and the code was always open source so that you could go and again like learn from Google themselves how to do Android. So now there is Now in Android, which very much is in this vein of serving two purposes. One is like an actual function, and the other is an educational function, and more of like an exemplary. Is that the right word to use there? As an example of Google best practices. So because naming is hard, Now in Android, if you're an Android developer, might sound familiar because it's actually this series of blogs and YouTube videos that the team has been producing as like kind of like your digital newsletter for what's going on in Android, including not just like news events like we talk about, but also like content and like tutorials and instructional videos, all that stuff. So the Now in Android app serves a similar function, but is also a place to kind of browse, search, bookmark all of your favorite news, educational content, and even lets you follow your favorite Android Googlers. I have my favorites. Hey, Chris, and Florina. But it's kind of funny because Google likes to always give developers these like two function apps, right? So it's literally where you can find Android training content and how to do Android, but also just going to the GitHub and looking at the source also teaches you how to do Android. And the code has been available on GitHub for a bit, but now there's an actual Play Store release. So even if you're an Android dev and you kind of just want to see, kind of like the ideal of what an Android app can be, you can certainly download it. And, if you want to like take a look at some Android dev content and see, what the Android team has been doing. If you want an idea of what Material U can look like, it's kind of cool because I think a lot of times we talk about this very often where Google releases things like Material U, and it's really hard to find good examples of it outside of, I don't know, like the marketing pages, like even like Gmail and other things and other kind of first-party Google apps don't really show it. But if you open Now in Android, you can actually I made a video of it. I don't know, Burke, I dropped a whole bunch of links on you before the show, but I actually, if you kind of really want to see what Material you can really do in terms of like colorizing or personalizing an app, you can do that in Now in Android. Not bad. I just dropped a whole bunch.
And so you're able to take a look at the examples that are shown within the app, and then does it give you the ability to look at the code behind it?
Oh no, you have to go to GitHub for that. So the app the app is just a functional app, and then so if you just go into your settings and then go to, my bad, it's like the fourth link. It's a Google Drive link, Burke. My bad. I should have said something before the show.
Yeah, I called it out in the doc with a little red bar for video.
But it's meant to be kind of like a practical example. And instead of like a play example, it's meant to be a practical example. Like, here's an app that actually shows a thing. So here's me going into my Z Fold and actually changing between the generated color palettes for Material U. And if I go back to now in Android, you can actually see.
Yeah.
And it's the whole thing. It's not just the icon. It's like the whole thing swapping. So you can kind of see, you know, what this actually looks like. Because again, with Material U, it's all dependent on like developers actually doing something with it. So this kind of gives us both inspiration and example on how to do it. So yeah, if you look into the code, you'll see an app entirely built in all the fun things like Kotlin and Jetpack Compose drink. And a lot of like, you know, the recommended practices for app architecture, modularization, all that stuff. So it's kind of a great thing because honestly, like before, when they would make the Google I/O app, the like showcase app every year, it's like, well, if I'm not going to Google I/O, it's kind of meh. And also the fact that it's like a new code base every year, it's kind of like, why can't you just keep like the same code base and just have it like update naturally, like as Android development evolves? So I don't know. There's a lot of fun stuff in this. And yeah, it's a really well done app and what hopefully Android app should look like.
Do you think the Google I/O app will still be what it was as far as kind of like, or is this replacing that as far as an app that showcases certain things that, you know, certain contexts and whatnot that developers can kind of base their work around?
I'm not a hundo, but I think it's more towards that. Also with, I think like the Google I/O app for this year, I think it was just mobile web. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure like a lot of like the Android Dev Summit and the Google I/O, I think they were relying on mobile web and then maybe they're just pouring all their efforts into this, which is kind of like a central place to do all these things. And maybe sometimes when you have, you know, a code base that lives for a long time, it's easier to like get stuff done. Whereas like, you know, kind of conference driven development can be a little bit messy. So maybe this is just a better maintained place where you can learn things, which is really, really important. I think like something like this is really invaluable, especially as an Android dev, whether you're new or old, because keeping up is important. And like literally saying, Google, how am I supposed to use this thing? And then having like concrete examples along with a working app really helps a lot.
Do we think that Google I/O is going to, this is totally unrelated, but I'm willing to go there. Is Google I/O going to be back to its normal self this year, do you think?
After someone who has experienced at least personally one, but several like back to normal events, you know, like, you know, I attended New York Comic Con in October, which was a very much back to normal, 100,000 people in Javits Center. I also attended an event at Google in New York City last week that was in person, not virtual. And there was a lot of, isn't it great to be back in person, stuff like that? So clearly the company doesn't have a problem with hosting an event that was, and it wasn't a big event. It was maybe, you know, 200 or so people, but still that's more than, you know, like the seats weren't socially distant. They were right next to each other and there was a happy hour and all the things that go with it. It felt real normal.
There's a lot of whatever. We're back, whatever. Going on right now.
I would assume that I/O would be back to normal.
Next year. I'm kind of getting that feeling too.
So I didn't go to the Android Dev Summit in London, but I did like very forlornly look at pictures of all my Android fan friends hanging out, and I think they were like going out and hanging out in London. There might have, I don't think karaoke, but they were like, everyone was hanging out, no mask on. Like if you had shown me a picture from that and showed me a picture from like the before times, I would not have noticed a difference. So might be back to, I think as long as everything was okay, it might very good chance to be back to business, back to normal, back in business. Next year. And
it'll be, you know, it's always that kind of springtime leading into on the cusp of summer and everything. So maybe that will change numbers and whatnot. I get the feeling that we're probably going to see a back to normal Google I/O this year, but I don't know. Maybe Google's kind of like, oh, I don't know. Do we have to do the back to normal thing? Like, you know, the tech companies are hurting right now. If you haven't, you know, if you've been paying attention, they're laying off a lot of people right now. So maybe they're looking to save their money.
A little bit.
All right, Ron.
My favorite. Speaking of that, I know it's low hanging fruit to talk and make fun of Twitter, but I do enjoy if you're following the Twitter drama, and you're reading the New York Times. Every New York Times article since the layoffs has said Twitter, whose entire communications team was laid off last week,
Yes.
did not respond to comments. Like, just like the idea that the New York Times is trying to get someone to comment and there's no one there to respond.
No one
and they're
even
saying-
to do it. Yeah.
It's just like
It's,
this underpinning of
a
really
mess.
sad humor throughout the entire of that story. So
What an absolute mess.
all right. Well, anyway, so staying on the topic of Android and Google Play Store and all fun stuff like that, the Google Play system actually got a pretty notable update this past month. You might remember us talking, previous episodes about the updated photo picker with a refreshed UI and access to photo and video libraries between apps. This experience came first to Android 13, so I've been using it very nicely on my new Pixel 7, by the way. Ooh. And Google actually said it would roll out back to Android 11. Well, surprise, through the benevolence of Android and Google Play systems, it's now coming back to every Android device, back to Android 4.4, which you might remember as KitKat. My favorite code name of them
Almost
all,
10
KitKat.
years old that version of the OS is.
Pre-material.
Exactly. So who said that they don't support old versions of Android? Like they don't keep them up to date and things like that. There you go. If you're running KitKat, you've got a better photo picker now.
You get a better photo picker. That's what we got you for Christmas.
If you are using a device with KitKat, please write in to AAA@twit.tv because we want to just understand why and what your experience with the new photo picker is.
How slow is that new photo picker on your KitKat device? I gotta know. On your 10-year-old device.
I will say this is something that we care about. Like, I think I can, especially at like big companies like where I work, where they're really trying to reach a lot of people. It's surprising, like how much like those last squeezing like as much user base as you can to try to reach everybody is really important. So I actually personally was super excited to see this in the rundown because I was like, yes, I told my
almost
team about
put
it.
your name on it when I did. I almost went there because I was like, when's usually on the photo picker beat? So I'm
excited because actually I think I'm allowed to say that we're looking at like 23 something like that to support. We're still debating it. So this now puts the photo picker within a very, like, this is an actual decision, like, because now it's way, below what our, bottom ideal threshold is. This is something that's really viable. If it wasn't that, then it's a lot, it's like a 60-70% harder sell. So this is always like really fun stuff. We can bring you guys the really cool, sexy new stuff. Thank you, Google. Sorry, I'm just really excited about this. I literally was telling my manager about this like 3 hours ago.
Nice.
I do like how excited you get with this sort of stuff. The excitement is palpable. So
is it because I'm spitting into the mic and you can hear like the fluid? Sorry, that's just really weird. My bad.
The passion. But yeah, we got passion for Android, so that's great. So so photo pickers, yay. But we've also got passion for our wonderful sponsors. And we're going to take a break right now because this episode of All About Android is brought to you by the fine folks by HPE GreenLake, orchestrated by the experts at CDW. And listen, the people at CDW understand that your organization needs simple management over its big data. I mean, who doesn't? But with workloads remaining on-prem due to legacy systems, it can feel challenging to organize and optimize your data. And that's where CDW can help your organization by consolidating and managing all your data in one flexible, unified experience with the HPE GreenLake Edge-to-Cloud platform. The experience you'll get with the HPE GreenLake is unique because no matter where your data or applications live, you can free up energy and resources with automated processes and streamlined management. And we can all use a little more streamlined things, right? Lord knows I could, that's for sure. Not only that, HPE GreenLake creates a seamless cloud experience among multiple data environments thanks to the as-a-service model that meets your remote workforce at the edge. And with unrivaled scalability, you'll see an instant increase in capacity, allowing for greater flexibility and accelerated business growth so your team can tackle bigger priorities like innovation. If you ask me, innovation is the most important priority, so it's great that this helps you get to do it. So when it comes to streamlined management, HPE makes data transformation possible. CDW makes it powerful. Learn more at cdw.com/HPE, and we thank them for their support and sponsoring this episode of All About Android. Thanks, CDW and HPE. All right.
Thank you,
With that,
CDW.
we got some hardware coming up.
Heck yeah, we got some hardware, the hardest of hardware. So, friend here at Twit, Anthony Nielsen, told me a couple of weeks ago, he said, hey, I just got the Logitech G Cloud. You want to check it out? And of course I said, okay, because guess what? This bad boy runs Android. That's right. It's running on Android, but it is a cloud device. So,
that is a chunker.
It's a large handheld. I mean, we're getting more and more accustomed to seeing devices like this. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch is the easy kind of go-to because it's been around for a while and it has this form factor. We've seen some, aftermarket kind of things for hooking your phone into a controller and having the controller tap into the phone and the apps that you install from the Play Store and everything. And then of course we got like the Steam Deck, which is actually larger than the G Cloud that I have here. Also costs a little bit more. This G Cloud runs $349, so $350 for this device. And as you can see, like though it's running Android, it has a different interface. There's a way to boot this into a standard like Android tablet UI, but you end up having to do a little bit more of kind of like the manual mapping for your controls and everything. And I think I read somewhere, I didn't test it myself, but if you're using this for an emulation device, you can run into some issues with mapping and kind of how things are set up. It might not be the perfect device to get if you really enjoy emulating. Even though in my mind, like this is the kind of device you want if you're emulating. You want something that really is designed for gaming. And so, but like I said, I can't really speak to that. I didn't take the time to kind of set this up for emulation. I was really curious to see how this worked as a cloud gaming device, which is really kind of what it's about. I mean, it's right in the name, right? Logitech G Cloud. So this is really meant to be a cloud gaming device. And it has some really good support as far as that's concerned. It's got it's got Xbox Cloud Gaming. It's got NVIDIA GeForce Now. Of course, it does not have Stadia. You're not going to find Stadia in here, right? You got Steam Link. You can connect this to your Xbox. So if you're on your local network or maybe even remote networking into your Xbox at home, you can do that. I don't have an Xbox, so I couldn't test that out either. But like I've been doing with some reviews in the past, and this, I wouldn't say that this is like a full top to bottom soup to nuts review because, I had this while I was sick, so I played it a handful of times. I would not say that I put this through the absolute ringer, but I got enough of a sense in playing it to understand whether if I had $350 and I wanted a cloud gaming portable device, would I feel like this was a good spend of that money or a ripoff? Or maybe, it's fine and there's others out there and this is just another in the marketplace. So I think the pros here is that the design is really nice. I mean, it is quite large, but it feels really nice. The curvature, the grip is comfy. The controllers themselves, it's got that vertical layout, which you either like or you don't like. I know that when I was talking to Anthony, he was kind of wishing that things were a little bit more angular than they are right now because it can be a little strange going top to bottom. It didn't bother me that much, but I would say that I'm not really of discerning taste when it comes to gaming these days. I just don't game enough to be that discerning, but I like it. It's got a 7-inch touchscreen. As you can see, you've got your analog and digital controllers. You also have your bumper buttons, some analog triggers up here. So really nice little switch for the power. This is a SD slot, which you're probably going to want. I'll talk about that in a second. Your volume rocker. You got your USB-C on the bottom, some speakers. A handful of other buttons like the G Cloud button for pulling up, extra context when you're within a game and you want to quit the game, you would push that and you could exit out, or the home button, a number of other things. But so I think the controls kind of capabilities of this, I liked it. Streaming from your local console, like I said, I can't really speak to that because I don't have the Xbox, but Anthony has done that a lot on this device and said that he enjoys using the controller, like when he's in his, in bed, wanting to play his Xbox, this allows him to just kind of lay in bed and, play it on a handheld device. That's pretty sweet. And then, of course, that micro SD card slot that's nice to have, because I'd say in the meh category, kind of the middle of the road, it only has 64 gigs of onboard storage. That might be enough if you're strictly cloud gaming and stuff like that. But if you want to do some Android gaming on that as well, you might run out of space. So having that extra storage is going to be nice. It's running a Snapdragon 720G, which is a 3-year-old chip on the inside. So, I'm a little. Anytime I see that especially a device that's this pricey, and I think to a certain degree, kind of hangs its hat on performance, it's kind of hard to go, okay, but it's got a 3-year-old chip. That's okay, especially when it's coupled with 4 gigs of RAM, which feels incredibly low to me. I feel like our phones are constantly like 12 gigs. Like, how does this have weird. 4 gigs of RAM? I don't even know. But
that's like a Chromecast has 4 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, right? Totally. But again, we're doing, cloud gaming largely, or streaming to, a browser. When you think of the Stadia model, that's what was happening there. So maybe it's a little bit less necessary as far as that's concerned. I don't know. I think that remains to be seen depending on how you choose to use the device. Again, I really kind of stuck with kind of the cloud gaming portion of this. And the display kind of falls in that meh category, which maybe I'm off base on this, but it's a 1080p LCD display. It's large enough that I don't know. I felt like there was a lack of clarity. Like if I'm on my phone and it's 1080p, it's a narrower display. I don't really care as much how things look. 1080p feels good enough. 4K feels like overkill. On this larger display, I kind of feel like how do I turn up the brightness? That's a great question, Burke. Here, I'll just launch something that's maybe a little bit easier here. I know that it's a little dark, and so Burke's telling me to increase the brightness, and off the cuff, I can't remember how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just launch into the cloud gaming interface and load something else. That was Halo Infinite, by the way. But anyways, I felt like the display is not like the most amazing asset of this. I feel like it could be a little bit sharper, but it's fine. I think where the downfall, like Forza Horizon, which I played for quite a bit, latency, just like streaming, cloud streaming latency for me. Here at the studio, we've got really great Wi-Fi, and you're going to be bored by the load screen, which is kind of what I'm looking at right now. So here I was kind of using the Wi-Fi here, which is pretty strong. I feel like things were pretty latent at home. I really felt like things were latent, and I don't feel like my internet is too crazy slow. I think the down is 100 megabits, somewhere around there, 100, 200, somewhere around there. I can't even remember at this point, but it felt like things should be a lot clearer and a lot, a lot less of like the breakup and fast action. Sometimes I felt like my actions that I was punching it with my fingers were behind what I was seeing on the screen by like a half second. I don't know. It's just little things like that kind of, impact the experience. I might throw in some extra B-roll in post just so that you get some actual gameplay, because as I'm talking about it, it's kind of hard to do that. I think ultimately the value for me in my time with it anyways, if I had $350 and I wanted to buy a cloud gaming, system, I don't know, man. Like it's kind of hard when you compare it against, something like the Steam Deck that does a ton more for $50 more. Or, you compare it against the quality of the Nintendo Switch. I mean, you can get those for $199. You can get the regular, that's the light version, the step up, $100 more. You're still $50 less for the Nintendo Switch than you are for the G Cloud, which is running, an Android kind of processor that's 3 years old. I don't know. I feel like the price is off. If this was $150 cheaper, I feel like it would be a no-brainer. But at $350, it feels like a hard sell to me. I don't know. Does this speak to either of you?
Is the Android aspect of it, like the fact that it can it do more than a Switch or a Steam Deck?
Yeah, sure. Right? Certainly. It has the Play Store installed.
Right.
It has the Play Store installed. But again, like, I'm trying to remember the game that Anthony was playing through Android. I want to say it was Genshin Impact. And the performance was really low and I mean, that makes sense, right? It's got 4 gigs of RAM. So how is this thing going to compete with like even many mid-range phones nowadays have more RAM and they're able to run games like that better than apparently this can when it comes to Android gaming,
But like as a media device or something?
Yeah, I mean, you can install Netflix on it. You can use it as a media device, no problem. That's fine. But aren't we awash with media devices at this point? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
That just feels like table stakes to me.
So, yeah, I mean, I have a Steam Deck and I've been playing it nonstop. Hades, if you're curious. It is interesting to kind of compare specs because I think the Steam Deck screen is it's got a lower resolution. I think I was reading. I'm looking here at the specs, like 1280. It's only 400 nits, whereas that's 450 nits. So presumably a brighter screen. It is heavier, but it also has like the haptic pads that Steam was. But it is more powerful. So even though it quote only runs Steam, Steam games, it does have storage. You can download games. You can play offline. Whereas, I don't know. Is it only Android games you can play? Only certain Android games you can play offline with the G Cloud, because everything else is.
Well, I think you could load, any Android games on here that are served in the Play Store. So any games in the Play Store that, allow for offline play, absolutely.
So there seems to be nominally like a broader, content range that you can play on it, but
yeah, there is. Yeah, you're probably right.
And it is lighter. I'm not an Xbox Live person, so maybe it's not.
Yeah,
it's sort of like hitting me on the Android side, but not hitting me on the Steam side because I already have I have a Steam Deck and I have a big phone with a big screen. So I don't know. It feels like it's overlapping a little bit, at least for me, like a couple devices that I have. I do love the idea of cloud gaming, and I do like the idea of putting cloud gaming in a device of this form factor. I guess I'm not blown away. Especially 4 gigabytes of RAM. Like, again, sorry, not to compare, but to compare, the Steam Deck has 16 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think you have to compare when it's a gaming system. When it's a gaming device, a device created for gaming. 4 gigs just seems. I don't know. It just seems criminally low to me.
Yeah, it's odd.
It is very bizarre. Yeah. So anywho, that's my thoughts on some relatively short amount of time with the Logitech G Cloud. $350. I'd be really curious to hear from folks, fans of the show who want one, who have one, who decided not to get one. Like, what are your thoughts? What is it doing or not doing for that price? It seems expensive to me, but maybe I'm not the right person for it because I don't do a whole lot of gaming these days. So curious to know what you think. AAA@twit.tv.
Victor would be great for this.
Yeah, I'm sure Victor would have opinions. Hey, Victor, get in on the feedback. We may even give you the email of the week, Victor, if you send us some sort of a review.
Nothing says you can't get it, Victor. You could get the email of the week.
You could.
So, yeah.
You could. It's yours for the taking. So there you go. The Logitech G Cloud. All right, this next one. This is interesting. This is exciting.
I like it. I mean, so we talked about the G Cloud. This is very airy in a dissimilar way because what we're going to be talking about is the alleged Google Pixel Fold, which allegedly leaked. And this was covered by our very own Florence Ion, who kind of covered the renders that were leaked by YouTube channel Front Page Tech. And so if Front Page Tech can be trusted, which Flo notes that they have been kind of spot on with a couple things, then we might be getting some renders of the Google Pixel Fold, which according to Front Page Tech is codenamed Passport because obviously. So there's a couple of really good things to be excited about and one thing in particular that is less exciting. So On the plus side, it is wider, and Flo mentioned, when she did her review, that she finds the front screen a bit narrow, and that's been my experience too with my Fold. I love the Fold, but I do agree that the front is narrower than your typical, regular smartphone, so it does make it harder to use. Flo rocks the nails, and so especially with the kind of dimensions and the proportions of this phone, it just makes it a little bit difficult. Well, the Pixel Fold allegedly fixes this with, and if you look at the renders, you can see the front screen is a little bit more proportional to what we think of like a regular Pixel device, and presumably because the sides are a little bit wider, the kind of inner screen would be a bit wider as well. Maybe actually landscape and not square, fixing my problems. So on the back side, audio stream listeners can't see, but on the back side, you will see a very familiar camera bar in the style of the Pixel 6 and 7 series. It doesn't quite reach the edges of both the 6 and 7. It's kind of this like raised bump on the back, but it has that aesthetic of the Pixel 6 and 7 and the same kind of triple camera that you get with like the Pros. And something that is interesting is that this phone is bigger, both in terms of dimensions, front screen aspect ratio, and also bezels, but there's a good reason for that. So on the inner screen of the alleged Passport, you've got a bit, they're not that thick, but in a world where everyone doesn't like bezels, there's a few, millimeter thick bezels at the top and the bottom. Now, the reason for this is that unlike the Z Fold 4, which has a under-display camera, the front-facing camera on the inner screen of the Pixel Fold allegedly will be hidden by this bezel, which Flo notes, while she likes a lot of things about the Z Fold 4, the under-display camera is not one of the things, and I personally agree. It's terrible quality. So if the bezel allows for a better inner camera, Flo says she's in on all that, and so am I. So the one thing that really, really is not great is the price. And it's not like it's that different. Allegedly, the Passport will cost $1,800, which, is about the cost of the Z Fold 4 before trade-in. But, it's a compelling device, but I think all of us wanted to see cheaper foldables to make them more attainable and accessible for average folks, or not average folks, just anybody. $1,800 is a lot of money to spend on a single phone before trade-in. So it's kind of, it's pretty dang expensive. So there you go. I think it is very compelling. I have to admit, I'm still kind of like on the I'll probably buy one if these renders can be trusted. But these price tags are not moving at all on this foldable. So we'll see. I don't know. Ron, you've been really excited for the Pixel Foldable. Are you more excited? Are you like waiting?
Every moment I get to be excited, I'm more excited.
Really?
Whether or not these are real or not. And I'm expecting it to be pricey. It's going to be ridiculously pricey. I kind of don't believe these renders because of the camera bar, because I feel like that's trying a bit too hard to link it to the current line of phones. But that said, I'm very excited to see what Google does with this foldable, and I just want them to announce it. And the wait is getting to me. It's like harder than waiting for Christmas, to be honest. So
who knows? Maybe you'll get it for Christmas. Maybe Santa Claus will bring you a Pixel Fold.
That would be amazing.
And you can break some news on All About Android.
I've been very good. So.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm definitely interested. I'm intrigued by your question or your point about this $1,800 price point with foldables not coming down. And is that just indication that the foldable thing hasn't quite hit that momentum, that peak point where there's enough interest that people want to buy it, so that things like there's the overall economy around foldables gets less expensive to make, and that sort of thing? Like, are we not getting the excitement out of foldables that companies thought we would by this point? You know what I mean?
Maybe it's just this particular species of foldable, because obviously the Flip is
foldable. Yeah, that's true.
Gangbusters, and was it just last week or 2 weeks ago we covered the the Huawei Fold, the Pocket, the P50 Pocket. So, but they're within the 800 range, which I still think for a, let's say, candy bar-ish, not really, it's a clamshell, but candy bar-ish phones is still like high end. It's like, that's still a high end phone. Maybe, is it something just about this particular foldable because it's just really playing a premium on the real estate?
Yeah.
Like this is like your summer home with like the pool and like, like the 100 acres out back, whereas maybe your clamshell is like your like
apartment.
downtown, your downtown penthouse in New York City or something. I don't know. It's like there's some market out there, right? Because obviously Samsung, I forgot the number, but some ridiculous and pleasantly surprising amount of foldable devices shipped last year, and they're investing so much on it. Like Huawei is, everybody is. I mean, Oppo and everyone investing in this. I don't know. Is it? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just going to be a premium device for a little bit longer. Maybe they're just waiting for better technology. Because I mean, we know that I know that the Z Fold 4s and all of these devices have durability issues, and maybe for those of us that can't afford $1,800 phones or $900 after trade-in, maybe we're the kind of people that won't mind that the inner screen bubbles after a year or 2 years. I would mind, but I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, and maybe it's just for now, especially the book fold. What are we going to call this? Like the book foldable, whatever this is, the passport. We'll call it passport.
Yeah, sure.
We'll call it the passport. Maybe the passport style foldables will just have to be premium devices. I really don't know. It's kind of staggering to me that someone hasn't figured this out better, but maybe I don't know.
I'm also just noticing how damn thin this thing looks in those renders. It really does look thin.
It's kind of nice, except for
Where's
that big sunken camera
That's
bar.
the big question. Where's the battery?
Right.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Yeah.
They don't make batteries that thin yet, as much as I want them to.
Or if they're, I mean, I imagine if this is a true mock-up, like they could hopefully replicate it in reality, which means that there would be a battery to put into it. It's just how big would that battery really be?
Well, I think in the other folds, it was like in one of the portions, the majority of the battery was
in
like
one side.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That side.
I mean, Prosser doesn't have a 100% record, but he's certainly been on certain things. So I think with the Pixel 7 he was on with that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's got something that we will look at 6 or 8 months down the line and be like, oh yeah, you got that one. But could go the other way too. What about yours, Ron? Your rumor?
Well, my rumor.
Fest.
So it's totally now just go to the other side of the room for this rumor. Talking about possibly spending a lot for the foldable or spending less for the mid-range device. Rumor about the Pixel 7a. We're starting to get some of those rumors leaking out here. Apparently, it's got some big upgrades to it, which is interesting. 90 hertz 1080p display from Samsung. Wireless charging, although it's limited to 5 watts, which is but you can say it's got wireless charging.
Yeah, exactly.
Say
it's got it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but the big thing, which I think is the big differentiator over the Pixel 6a, is that the camera is going to get a big upgrade over the 6a, which is a big criticism of the 6a. So it's nice to see they heard that and they want the 7a. And this doesn't surprise me, given that it was so funny because when I was onboarding, when I was loading up my Pixel 7. And you got to like the Pixel tips, the mini app to tell you, here's what's new with your Pixel 7. I kept on swiping and everything was camera. It was like, camera can do this, camera can do that, camera can do this. So with such a focus on the Pixel 7 being on the camera, obviously the hardware for the 7a would need to be, to keep up with the software, it would need to get a better camera system. So that's a good rumor as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, the 7a gets a little, rumored to get a little shot in the arm over the 6a. So there you go.
Wireless charging, there it is. Once a premium luxury feature, now coming to the mid-range Pixel device. So it's a little slow, but it's there. They can say it's there.
There it is.
There it is. All right, we've got some interesting app news coming up here in a moment, but first, let's take a break. because it is that time of the show where we thank the sponsor of this episode of All About Android, and that is Policy Genius. We all hope that we never need things like life insurance, but mortgage payments, childcare, other expenses don't just disappear when you're gone, right? Life insurance through your workplace may not offer enough protection for your family's needs, and it won't follow you if you leave your job. A lot of people, I think, forget about that part. Since life insurance typically gets more expensive as we age, now is the time to buy. And Policy Genius will give you a smarter way to find and buy the right coverage for you and your family. And, you know, it's the time to do it. The best time to do it was yesterday. The next best time is now, right? You want to do this, obviously, before it's too late. We don't like thinking about what that actually looks like, what is too late, but it's incredibly important, man. Policy Genius was built to modernize the life insurance industry. Their technology makes it easy to compare life insurance quotes from top companies, you know, AIG, Prudential, just to name a few, in just a few clicks so that you can find your lowest price. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $17 a month. For that, you know, right around $500,000 of coverage. And Policy Genius has licensed agents who can help you find options that offer coverage in as little as a week and avoid unnecessary medical exams. The licensed agents at Policy Genius, they're working for you, not the insurance companies. They're not incentivized to recommend one insurer or another, so you can trust their guidance. There are no added fees. Your personal information is private, stays private. It's no wonder they have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. If you want to check it out for yourself, you'll find them. They're out there. And while you're there, Policy Genius offers quotes for home, auto, pet, renters, and more. They just make the whole process just super easy. Your loved ones deserve a financial safety net. You deserve a smarter way to find and buy it. Head to policygenius.com/AAA or just click the link in the description on our show page. You'll get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save when you do that. That's policygenius.com/AAA. And we thank them for their support of All About Android. Thank you, Policy Genius. Okay. It's time to check out some app news. Let's dive in.
Oh yeah. We have the ongoing saga of user choice billing.
I knew you would like this.
Audio stream listeners will not be able to hear my massive air quotes at user choice billing. But just imagine.
We can hear the swooping of the all the air that you're moving. It's like
whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. We've talked about this before, and there is a new chapter as the first non-Google Android billing launches in the U.S. through Spotify this week. And so I think the last time that we talked about user choice billing, whoosh, whoosh, the pilot program had been launched in the European Economic Area, Australia, India, Indonesia, and Japan. And so, of course, the impetus for this whole pilot program of third-party billing as an alternative to Google Play billing has been this long-standing feud between the duopoly of both, you know, Apple and Google, and pretty much everybody else. You know, the coalition of app fairness, which includes Spotify, has been pushing for non-duopoly billing due to the large percentage of the large percentage that both Apple and Google take out of in-app purchases and subscriptions. So, you know, it's historically big players like Spotify and Netflix have been able to kind of skirt the Google Play billing guidelines. But as we kind of talked about way back, I think it's actually one of the first stories I talked about when I became a co-host. So I have warm feelings sort of about this story, not towards Google and Apple, but just about this whole saga. So, you know, I think last year they announced that, hey, by March 2022, we're super serious now. You guys, you big players like Netflix and Spotify, you better follow the rules. But at the same time, they also announced right around that time of March 2022, when that deadline came up, is that they announced a partnership with Spotify to explore third-party billing options. So after all that, now for y'all US-based Spotify subscribers, you can now see two options when you go to handle your subscription payment. You will get both the traditional Google Play option as well as a Spotify option, and clicking Spotify will take you to both a direct credit debit option as well as, hey, a very familiar PayPal button. So we already mentioned Ron from our Statica earlier, and I always love the extra spice that Ron throws on articles like this, because, and very rightly, Ron notes that Google is, as it's rolling out this user choice billing program, that they're trying to spin it, the marketing on this, to make it some kind of grand experiment, boundary breaking, and it's like they're just trying to explore like new like frontiers and like, you know, user choice, when I mean, you know, everywhere else on the internet you had 2 to 3 or more options for payment at any point, like in the last like 10 plus years of, you know, paying for stuff on the internet. So you know, and also worth poking at, which Ron does brilliantly, is the fact that all this started, of course, as I already mentioned, that this all started because of the huge cut that Google and Apple takes out of in-app purchases and subscriptions. And I think the last time we talked about this, I had to make a chart where I think in the worst case, developers have 30% taken out of their in-app purchases. In the best case, if you're in some kind of Play media experience, it might be 10%-ish, maybe lower. And of course, even with all this grandstanding and this announcement of this, you know, non-Google Android Google Pay billing, it's still the same discount in other regions, and that discount is, by the way, only a reduction of 3 to 4%. So again, in the best case, maybe your fee goes down to 6%-ish from 10%. In the average case, it's going from 15% to 12%, and in the worst case, you're going from 30% to 26%.
And not just that, if you're not using Google's payment system, you're probably using another credit card, debit card payment system of some sort, right? And so you're probably also paying them a transaction fee, which often is 3%. So any of the money that you're supposedly gaining is just being redirected. So it's kind of like, who do you want to get your money? Do you want it to be Google, or do you want it to be the credit card company or the other service that you're using? It really doesn't seem to have accomplished what people wanted it to, right?
Yes, but now you have user choice.
But now it's the user's choice to decide which big company gets that.
Yeah, who do you want to get your 30%? Spotify or Google? I mean, that's just a brilliant choice right there.
Who should have that money instead of the developer? Should it be this company or that company? You get to choose.
Yeah, choose your own adventure. There it is. Use your choice. There it is.
You asked for it. This is what you got. Google's just like,
congratulations.
Yep.
We did so good.
I hope you've enjoyed user choice billing and what we've given you. I hope you enjoyed your choice. Yeah. Not so sweet.
Not so much.
Not so much.
No. Oh, God. What's going on with Android Auto now, Jason?
I know. I almost feel like I wish we had Flo here, because she wrote the article and she was the one that actually took the trip down to Google to get a firsthand experience, firsthand impression of Android Auto's long-awaited Cool Walk interface. I doubt they're calling it Cool Walk to everyone. That's probably more like the project, behind the scenes, but it is a neat name. The interface update is now rolling out in beta form. And so Google invited a number of journalists down to take a look at it in person. Flo was one of those. So she got to go down there, wrote about it for Gizmodo. So if you want to find her kind of full write-up about this, you can check out her work on Gizmodo, as you should already be doing, honestly. But she points out there's the new emphasis on a split screen interface, which actually sounds really handy. The whole idea here, and you can see it in the little shot in this image, is that the map is the most important part of when your map is running. That's the most important thing. When you're driving, you need that map all the time. So the split screen interface is really designed to keep the map in place regardless of what else is happening on in that interface. Are you streaming a playlist from Spotify? Did you get a message? Whatever it may be, your map's most important. The other stuff kind of cascades in importance behind that. And so you could have up to 3 different windows showing at any given time. Like what you see, the map, let's say that stays isolated. And then on the right-hand side, if you suddenly, you've got your playlist going on Spotify, suddenly you get a message, that could split in half and your message goes in the top, your music stays in the bottom. Really in an attempt to keep us from, and this has totally been my experience when I use Android Auto, keep me from that kind of confusing state of, oh, wait a minute, I really want to keep my eyes on the road, but what I needed just went away or is hidden behind something else. How do I get there? That kind of confusion state of like, how do I get the thing that's most important or, kind of elevated on that hierarchy of importance? And so, she said it's meant to scale across all screen sizes, so it doesn't matter if the Android Auto display that you have in your car is really long and wide versus kind of big and square or whatever the case may be. It will be adaptable to the different screen sizes. Says it feels very more Android-y than the previous versions. Definitely has more of that Material You kind of approach, and won't be fully available until 2023. But she did say that there are it's not perfect, it's not ironed out, and in fact, I thought this was interesting. A separate article, 9 to 5 Google, reported that Waze, which is a Google company, by the way, does not currently support the split screen feature, which isn't in itself like, okay, I get it. Google can sometimes be, behind on updating their things, and this is in beta and everything like that. So cut them some slack. But what I think it points out is if a developer of an app in Android Auto doesn't want to support the split screen interface, this kind of seems to show that if they choose not to, then it bypasses it and it ends up being a full screen thing. That to me seems like unless I'm misunderstanding it, that just seems like a total missed opportunity. That would be a real bummer if the split screen interface is meant to have all these usability and drivability functions, and all it takes is someone to be like, no, I'm not updating my app, and boom, it kind of ruins the experience. But I don't know. Am I speaking out of turn, Win? What do you think about that?
I'm not sure. That's totally possible. It could also be that rather than taking over the whole screen, that Waze, I really don't know.
It's hard to know what exactly is happening there, but yeah.
Because I would just, if I was just looking at it and you didn't tell me what you just did, I would just assume that it's almost either like a widget where you might have to make some kind of special functionality that because those are basically widgets, right? They're kind of like smaller, very focused pieces of functionality. Or it would just, I would presume maybe what might happen is it would just scale. So you might take, it's been a while, I'm not sure what in Waze might not scale well. Sorry, it's been a while since we actually used Waze. So I wouldn't know, honestly. I don't think you're off base. I just can't really tell what the, incompatibility is. But I think you're right. I think that's just always the crux with some of these things is that the first party Google functionality generally, on average works well. It's the integration with all the other apps that we use, podcasts, music, everything else.
Funny you should say that. I feel like that's a tease. That's a tease for our next pseudo story.
Little foreshadowing for you there. Yeah. But that it gets us like 60% of the way there. But it's that 40% that kind of can make it or break it, or makes us either really like it or just begrudgingly use it. So it is disappointing. There's a lot of functionality. I don't know much about Android Automotive. It might be like a whole different beast, so that'd be interesting. Which, by the way, did announce to have like a Compose have a drink API. So maybe, but I think I'm not trying to just shoehorn in a Compose reference.
Let's be honest. Be honest.
Yeah. Okay, everybody have a drink on me. But I do think that there is a gap in, hey, we have this thing, but also trying to like smooth the path for developers, because that is a problem. That extra 40% or whatever percent that is not there on launch because developers aren't there. I think they're trying to be a little proactive about it, but yes, hopefully Waze figures it out, because Waze is pretty important, and any other kind of like basic apps, or not even basic, but like frequently used apps. But
I'm sure Waze will figure it out. Like, if this is a beta version of this new interface and everything, I could totally cut them some slack for not having it ready right when the beta is ready. I think my concern was just like, oh, wait a minute. So this isn't just like by default, every app now runs in a windowed environment, or like a windowed UI, split screen UI. Like you have to, as a developer, bake into your app the ability to play nice with the split screen. And if you don't do that, does that take over your interface? And if so, that would suck. That was kind of
or it just looks really janky and small.
Yeah, exactly.
Something.
Right. So, but I'm hopeful. I think Android Auto has needed an interface kind of lift for a while, and I think this, from what I've seen in the screenshots and from what Flo wrote about, it does seem like this improves the driving experience, which is I think the most important part of something like Android Auto in the car, is that you want to be sure that it keeps the driving experience safe, keeps it prioritized appropriately. And the old interface, I never felt like did that very well. And so I have hope that this will. So we'll see.
And let's be honest, in the topic of Android Auto, Flo is a very critical person. So
yes, indeed.
Okay.
All right, Ron, tell us what's going on here.
I know we're running long, but I wanted to share the experience I had today with both Google and Netflix in relation to the Nest Hub. For those of you who have Nest Hubs at home, and if you use it to watch Netflix on your device, do me a favor, go try to use it, because I'm pretty sure you're going to have a problem. My wife likes to watch Grey's Anatomy on Netflix, like the original season, the early seasons, and she watches it on the Nest Hub while she's in the kitchen, making lunch or whatever. And just the other day, on the offhand, she's like, "Oh, Netflix isn't working anymore." I was like, "What do you mean?" And so today I was like, "Show me what's happening." And so you say, "Okay, G, play Netflix, play whatever," and it gives an error saying you need to link your Netflix account. But I had already done that because it was all working. And so went in and looked and saw my Netflix account was linked in the Google Home app. I'm like, all right, well, let me try unlinking and relinking it. Like clearly a connection got severed at some point. And I said, when did this happen? And she's like, oh, it stopped working on Friday. And I was like, okay, so it hasn't been working since Friday. Interesting. So, all right. So I tried to link my account again, and I log, and it gives you you go from in the Google Home app, you go to video, you go Netflix, link my account. It loads a screen on your phone to the Netflix credentials screen. You log in your Netflix credentials and send you back to Google Home. And it's supposed to say, okay, linked, and you're all set. Except for the fact that when I logged in with my Netflix credentials, I just get a white screen, and the URL's on the Google side that the URL ends in status equals error. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I tweeted at Google, at Made by Google, and they were responsive, very responsive. They're asking me questions, things like that. I'm like, well, I wonder, what do we usually do? Do we typically say, like, let me look online to see if anybody else is having this problem, right? So I discovered on GoogleNestCommunity.com, which is, I guess, the Google Nest support community forums, whatever, a post from last year where someone's had this problem, right? This Netflix isn't linking, and then blah, 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 not a lot of activity. And then I noticed within the last couple of days, there was a lot of people who found this also by Googling this issue, said, same thing's happening to me, same thing's happening to me, same thing's happening to me. And so I, of course, posted on here saying same thing's happening to me. And and that just lit a match of all these people coming out of the woodwork on this forum saying they're having the same problem. So I was like, all right, so something must be going on. I brought it to you guys earlier in the day. Our good friend Florence Ion, shared with me that today Netflix rolled out a new feature which allows you to manage your devices. So you can go into your Netflix account, and Burke, I put in the blog post in the doc. I don't think you preloaded it, but it's there. So now they have a very succinct blog post that basically says, now you have additional control over your account. You can go in your Netflix account, you can see what devices you have connected to it, and you can force them to sign out. And so I'm like, oh, clearly Netflix did something that changed, and that's the problem. Let me log into here and check this out. So I log into there, check it out. Sure enough, I see the Nest Hub as one of the devices, and it's still registered safe travels. It's still, the blog post was very, very short for audio listeners, and it just ended with safe travels, which is just such a weird thing to say in a blog post. But anyway, so I used the Netflix thing, and I removed the Hub account, thinking maybe that was the problem. I go back to Google Home, still get the same error. I then proceeded to spend an hour on online chat with a Netflix support rep trying to explain the issue, which was maddening. It was like talking to an AI bot. Like they're like, tell me about the device that's having trouble with video playback. I'm like, I'm not having a video playback problem. There's an authentication problem. And I was like, finally, I'm like numerous times, I'm like, this is a problem. Escalate it to your product team. I kept on saying that. Finally got around to doing that. That's fine. Still not working. Just earlier, as we're recording the show, Google got back to me over DM on Twitter, and they acknowledged the fact that they said we're aware of Netflix accounts not linking in the Google Home app and are already on top of it. Please submit a feedback report, and told me how to submit a feedback report so I can do it. So I went back to that Nest community hub to tell everyone to go do this, because hopefully if enough people complain, they'll do it quickly. But basically, like, what I discovered was that something, and I don't know if it's something on the Google side, or I'm guessing something on the Netflix side with this new feature that they rolled out, broke the authentication with Google Home. Nobody checked it on the Google side or the Netflix side. You have a lot of people complaining about it, and you have a great example here of both Netflix and Google, these monolithic tech companies that we all pay money to on a monthly basis, who, when you have an issue, cannot give you any support whatsoever.
Yeah.
No, that's rude. I don't want to say no support whatsoever, because the people on the Made by Google Twitter account were very helpful and moved to DM and did everything they could. But like, the Netflix support agent just didn't understand couldn't understand what I was explaining. And, you know, I have a bit of technical knowledge. I know when I get a URL that ends in status equals error, that's a problem. Yeah. Right. But what I think is also fascinating is that Nest has this forum where you have hundreds of people complaining about the issue, and no one is monitoring it. No one is doing anything about it or being responsive. I feel like I posted in the forum tonight the answer I got from Google and telling everyone what to do, but like, I feel the need now to go back and reply to everybody to tell them, but it's not my job.
No,
like,
it's
I don't
not
have
your
to do
job.
this, right?
No, totally. You've done more than enough. Yeah.
But so the two layers here is that, one, I seem to have uncovered a problem with the Nest Hub and Netflix. So if you have the Nest Hub and Netflix, go home and check it, see if it's working for you or not. But two, it just further showed the problem with customer support from these big companies, specifically also Google. Like, it's very hard to get any support once you buy these devices. And when you were saying earlier, when we were talking about Android Auto, for the most part, when Google's working on something that is all Google, it works. But when it's that connection to another company and it gets complicated, it all breaks down. And so much of this is interconnected hardware and software talking to each other, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. This all is very raw and happened to me today. It's still not fixed, but here we are.
And while I'm not experiencing that particular problem, I have experienced that particular thing that you went through, that challenge, a number of times, and it is never fun. Yeah. Oh, I feel for you.
What's great is that Netflix allows you they email you the transcript of your conversation, and it's just very funny to go back. I mean, I shared it with you guys in Slack, you had time to read it, but it's like at one point I'm like, I'm telling you, it's broken. Like, it's like I'm trying to explain to the support rep what's going on, and
those experiences can be pretty maddening.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've reached somewhat of a resolution then, yeah?
Somewhat. I mean, we're waiting for it to fix, and people in the chat room are saying, you can Chromecast from your phone too. Yeah, but my wife doesn't want to do that. She's not one of us. Like, she's got an iPhone. She just wants to do. She wants to just tell Google to, tell the Nest Hub to watch what she wants to watch and have it work the way it's worked for years now.
Right.
Right.
Just wanted to do the thing it always does, always has done.
And it also further shows that this stuff is just so fragile. It's so fragile.
Yeah,
it can
really
break.
Absolutely.
It can break with one change somewhere in the system. It can break so many things, and and luckily they have us users who are who are tech savvy enough to do the troubleshooting for them. But it's frustrating when it comes down to trying to get any level of support.
All it takes is one person with a lot of money to buy the company and turn off microservices, and poof, it goes.
I know. Could you believe that? Jeez. Yeah.
Anyways, not to stir up that stuff. We don't need to spend any time talking about him. Sorry about that. What you got?
Well, if you like taking screenshots on Chrome, maybe if you're like Ron and had some issues and had to take a screenshot of the Google Nest community to show that it is not just him, or maybe not to talk about unpleasant things, but maybe you're like me and you really wanted to repost some infuriating content on your favorite doom scroll this last weekend, or maybe you like taking screenshots to provide cheeky examples and Easter eggs when explaining how to do awesome things on Android, then J.R. Raphael of Android Intelligence has some tips for how to zhuzh up your Chrome screenshots. What you got for us, JR?
Hey, so I don't know about you, but I tend to share a shockingly high number of screenshots from my phone. And a lot of them, for whatever reason, seem to come from Chrome in some form or another. So today I want to show you a couple of cool tricks for adding a little extra pizzazz into the screenshots you capture from Chrome on your phone, no matter what kind of Android device you might be carrying. Up first, it's a handy new way you can add extra emphasis onto anything you see in Chrome on your phone without having to do any of the usual sloppy-looking scribbling. You can add in outline circles, boxes, even use an arrow, all in any color you want, to draw attention to any specific part of the screen. Couldn't be much easier either. All you've got to do to make this happen is type Chrome:/flags into the address bar in Chrome on your phone, type screenshots into the search box on the screen that comes up next, then tap the line labeled Screenshots for Android V2 and change its setting from disabled to enabled. Not a whole lot to it. After that, all that's left is to tap the blue relaunch button at the bottom of the screen, and that's it. Now just open up a web page, any old web page, and tap the main 3-dot menu icon up in Chrome's upper right corner. Select Share, then Screenshot. And hey, how about that? Right there at the bottom of the browser is a newly added shape option. That's exactly what you need. Told you it was easy, right? Next, one more Chrome screenshot enhancement for you to check out. Now, for fair warning, this one is slightly silly, but it could still be useful. It's an addition to the browser's screenshot system that lets you add an expressive animated reaction onto any image you capture for extra effect. So you can make it a laughing emoji, a heart, applause, all sorts of different possibilities to pick from. And once again, it just takes a quick flip of one switch to make it all possible. So here we go. Type Chrome:/flags into your browser's address bar one more time, and this time type reactions into the search box at the top of the screen. Find the line labeled Lightweight Reactions Android, change its setting to enabled, then just tap that relaunch button once more. And that's it. When Chrome comes back up, hit that share option in the main Chrome menu again, and now you'll see a new Add Emotion command right then and there. That'll let you pick whatever emoticon you want. You can move it, resize it, even duplicate it if you're feeling extra merry. Just hit the little check mark in the lower corner of the screen when you're all done to save it as a GIF. You can then share it anywhere you want. That might just be my favorite new Chrome feature. Hey, remember, if you want to uncover awesome new treasures like these every week, get yourself on board with my Android Intelligence newsletter. Brings you 3 new things to try right in your inbox every Friday, along with all sorts of other interesting stuff. Completely free for you. Just head over to androidintel.net/twit to get in on the action. That site again is androidintel.net/twit. I'll see you there, and I'll see you right back here next week.
That last tip was awesome. Like that's
very cool.
That's such a hidden gem. I love that. I mean, how many times am I going to think about, putting an animated GIF over the top of a screenshot? I don't know, but I didn't know Chrome could do that and, create an animated GIF like that. That's pretty neat.
I wanted to put some poop emojis all over my Twitter feed or my bird site feed this last couple 24 hours. So I'm ready.
One could do that.
One could do that.
If one really wanted to, one could do that.
For reasons, one could do that.
Love it. Thank you, JR, for these awesome tips. Really, really cool. All right, coming up, we've got your feedback. But first, let's take a break to thank the sponsor of this episode of All About Android, and that is SecureWorks. SecureWorks is a leader in cybersecurity. They're building solutions for security experts by security experts. SecureWorks offers superior threat detection and rapid incident response, all while making sure that the customers are never locked into a single vendor. Now, SecureWorks offers an open, extended detection and response platform. It's called Taegis XDR, and now is actually the right time to get it. You might be asking yourself, well, why is that? What's going on right now? Well, in 2022, cybercrime is going to cost the world $7 trillion. But by 2025, that's just a couple of years, that figure is going to grow to $10.5 trillion. In 2021, ransomware totaled $20 billion in damages, and attacks occurred every 11 seconds. But by 2031, 10 years later, ransomware is projected to cost $265 billion per year and strike every 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds. Talk about rapid. Make sure your organization is not the next victim with SecureWorks Taegis XDR. SecureWorks Taegis provides superior detection. It identifies more than 470 billion security events every day, prioritizing the true positive alerts, eliminating alert noise, and allowing organizations to focus on the real threat. And in addition, Taegis offers unmatched response with automated response actions to eliminate threats before damage is ever done. With SecureWorks Taegis Managed XDR, you can easily leverage SecureWorks experts to investigate and respond to threats on your behalf, so you can cut dwell times, you can decrease your operational burden, and you can reduce your cost. And with 24/7, 365 coverage, whether you experience, an event, a security event on Christmas Day, or maybe half your team is out sick at one point, you can trust that SecureWorks is behind you. Many companies are facing a shortage of security talent, no doubt about it. SecureWorks acts as an extension of your security team on day one. That alleviates cybersecurity talent gaps. It also allows you to customize the approach and the coverage level that you need. And what happens if you've already found an intruder in your system? Well, if that's happening, there's no need to worry. You just need to write this number down, 1-800-BREACHED. That's 1-800-BREACHED. That number is going to connect you with the SecureWorks Emergency Incident Response Team. They can actually provide you with immediate assistance 24/7 in responding to and remediating a possible cyber incident or data breach. You don't need to know what to do. You just need to know to call that number, and they'll help you out. At SecureWorks, you can learn more about the ways today's threat environment is evolving and the risks it can present to your organization, including case studies, reports from their counter threat unit, and a whole lot more. Just remember this. Visit secureworks.com/twit. You'll get a free trial of Taegis XDR when you go there. That's secureworks.com/twit. SecureWorks, defending every corner of cyberspace. And we thank them for their support of All About Android, keeping you safe. All right, we've got some feedback to get to here. We actually had a lot of good feedback this week, so I had to be choosy. So if we have some time next week, maybe we'll fit in a few extra. But we'll start with Jeff Smith from Danville, Pennsylvania, who says, on your last episode, Derek wrote in about not being able to get his Nest Hub sleep data from Google Fit into Fitbit. I'm not 100% sure if this would work, but I think the new Health Connect by Android app might be a solution. I have a situation where my sleep and exercise data go into Fitbit via my Pixel Watch, but my Waze Smart Scale data imports to Google Fit. I used to use Fit to Fit, which of course we introduced on the show, he says, some time ago. Thank you. He thanks us for that. To sync data between apps. He says, I had to set to sync at midnight every day. Sometimes the sync would fail due to the app losing access to Fitbit, and I would just have to log in again and manually sync it to keep everything up to date. Health Connect has replaced the Fit to Fit app for me. It seamlessly keeps data synced between Fitbit and Google Fit, but it also has a number of other health apps it can include. It seems to act as a sort of central hub for all health data coming in, and it can share that data among the apps of your choosing. The app itself is very minimal. In fact, it doesn't even have an icon once installed. So minimal you can't find the icon, but instead is accessed through settings. You decide which apps to include and what types of data to share. One tip that took me a day or two to figure out: once you select which apps you want to share data in Health Connect, you must then go to each app's settings and enable sharing data with Health Connect. That's a really good tip. Yeah, I imagine if you don't do that, you might not get as much helpful information syncing between the two. So thank you for sending that in, Jeff. Excellent recommendation. People should check it out because it seems to be working really well for Jeff in a number of different ways. It's Health Connect by Android. So check it out in the Play Store. Thank you, Jeff.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. All right, Ron, you're up next.
I am up next, and we teased it way earlier in the show, but thanks to Mike in Dubai, we get to talk about the Nothing Ear Stick, because Mike wrote in and said, you had a very compelling review of the Nothing Ear Stick, and I'm considering replacing my Jabras. But you didn't mention about the mic quality. I use my headphones for calls and language class, and being heard clearly is really important to me. Any remarks on how the mic sounds on calls? And Mike, I'll be honest with you, I don't know, because I don't rarely use my phone for calls, and I haven't actually used it. Although I have been on a couple of Zoom calls for work where I used them and I spoke, and nobody complained about how I sounded. So I assume it was okay, but I haven't actually had time to do like a end-to-end, like, hey, how do I sound kind of conversation from there. But I will do that, and maybe Huynh, you could do that too. Or Huynh, have you done that yet? Now that you got the ear stick as well, or?
I also got the ear stick. I like Mike, was very compelled by the Nothing Ear Stick review that Ron did. In fact, I bought them even before the show ended last week. I have loved them. I did actually coincidentally take a call for like the first time in months. And similar to what Ron's feedback was, no one told me I sounded bad. It was actually a literal phone call, like, you know, like what phones that originally were used for. I did one of those this week, like for the first time in ages.
Wow.
And so it didn't sound bad. But I could probably do a little more rigorous test also, and then get back to you. But I don't know. They've sounded great. I'm really happy. And Ron, I might be in on the no more in-ear buds thing like you. Like, I was kind of surprised because this is my first pair of like not in-ear buds. It's kind of weird, you know. And they were great. I just so happy. I'm so happy.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't feel like they're like dangling out and gonna fall out or anything. They stay in place.
At first, yeah, I was a little concerned,
Yeah.
but then I actually kind of like shook my head a couple times and just like was bopping with the music. Now they stayed in. I was
Headbanged.
baffled.
I know you like
Didn't
your metal
headbang.
music.
Oh, I should put on some. Oh, well, I used to be a Slipknot fan, something like that, and then, you know, like just as hardcore as I can find. Well, I'll let you know
right.
whether my brains or the ear sticks fall out first.
Yeah.
Probably the former.
All right, so
Oh.
I have switched to the ear stick on my computer via
Wow,
Bluetooth.
you
I'm
did.
wearing them. I'm wearing them right now and using their mic as the input. I don't know how I sound. How does it sound?
It sounds fine. It's hard
Very.
because we're in the realm of like podcast audio, right? The comparison between the Heil and this is very jarring. But
Exactly.
But I mean, they don't sound horrible. Like, we can hear you, and I mean, it's a little roomy, it's a little tinny, but
They don't
Right.
sound as good as the AirPods, let's just say.
Really?
so if
And,
someone was
and,
wearing AirPods, because that does happen on this network, unfortunately,
It does.
from time to time, someone will
Yeah.
put in AirPods and they'll make it to air.
Yeah. I would
And-
say it's okay for a phone call, but
Yeah, like if let's just put it this way.
Your coworkers are being really nice to you, I think.
Yeah, let's just say that if you were wearing these and you wanted to do the podcast, we'd say
No.
Don't
hell
do it.
no.
No, but I would say the same thing to anybody wearing AirPods or anything like
Yeah,
we're doing.
no,
a podcast,
totally,
we should be
totally.
doing it. We
Yeah.
have the microphone, but But I guess the question is, like, imagine we're on the phone and this is a phone call. How do I sound in that regard?
It sounds okay. It's not nearly as obviously as good as if you were speaking into the handset, right? Web5762 in IRC says sounds like a speakerphone, and as they said that, and I was listening to you talk, it kind of does sound like a speakerphone. Like you can hear the distance between the mic up by your ear down to your mouth, and I think some buds do a better job of that than others. I wouldn't say that this is groundbreaking as far as that's concerned. Yeah. It's okay.
And who knows? And I'll do. And there you go, Mike in Dubai. Here's a live example.
I think it's a great example. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, but it was Burke's idea. Burke quickly slacked me. He's like, let's do a test now. He said, let's do a test. I said, now? He said, no. And he's like, wait a minute. And then I quickly did it. So there we are. But I will do between this week and next week. I'll make some phone calls. I'll call my sister. I'll call my wife. I'll be like, how do I sound? And like compare it from the phone and that sort of thing. But I think like for what the use case is, and it can't sound better. It can't sound any worse than the cheaper earbuds I was using. The the Nexicos that I was using.
I'd be really surprised if they sounded worse than the Nexicos.
Yeah. So
it's very clear. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
You're very understandable.
You want clarity.
You're very understandable.
You want clarity. It's just more like, I think, we're all in podcast mode right now. So, you sound,
it's a little boxy. It's kind of got a boxy kind of filtery quality to it. But
also keep in mind that this is going Bluetooth to a laptop and going through all that sort of stuff. So I gotta imagine if I do it the phone, it would sound somewhat different. Yeah. But I'll run some more tests. But there you go, Mike. There's a quick example of what it sounds like. And I'll do some more tests and report back next week. But I gotta tell you, I went into the city and I was on the subway and used these and was, did the normal kind of commute thing. They were great. They feel great. They never fell out. I got to tell you, they sound a lot better than those Nexicos I was using. Like I listened to music and it actually felt bassy. Like it felt like music should feel, Jason, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like where you want to feel it. And so
it really did. It really, I listened to a mix of Dolly Parton's Jolene. I listened to a really like bassy, like hard beat thing, and I actually got a little dizzy because it was like boom, 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 boom. So that's actually a positive on my part. It sounded really good.
It brought the boom to the room.
It brought the boom, like. Jolene. It brought Jolene to my earballs. It was good. I nothing but good things to say.
Nice.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, I'm going to switch back to my other headphones.
Okay.
So you guys,
please.
but it's that time. It's that time. It's that time of the show. So
that's right. Win. You got the honors.
Yes, and it is now time for.
There we go.
The email of the week. I'm sorry. Audio listeners, I was ready. I had my hands up and everything, and I'm sorry. But yes, it is time for the email of the week, and the email from the week comes from William Sanborn, a twit in Stanton, Michigan. Sorry, Michigan? Am I? Michigan,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
My
Michigan.
bad.
Yep.
I am so sorry. From Stanton, Michigan. Been on the Android bandwagon since my first smartphone, the Samsung Galaxy Prevail. Bounced around a few Motorola's on various carriers, Boost, Republic, Google Fi over the years, but I had always wanted to try a Pixel, but the price kept me away. The current 6A discounting caught my eye, and I bought the 6A and service bundle on Mint Mobile for basically what I was paying on Google Fi for service. Excited for long-term OS and security updates, but am curious about signing up for beta releases for the next OS. Is it a bad idea on a daily driver? I'm not a power user by any means, but like to be up to date and play with new features. Glad to be on a phone that is relevant to the show after being an OS or two behind for a while.
Congratulations. Welcome to the future.
Sure.
Well, what do you think? I mean, I can understand the excitement, right? Like after being on phones that maybe aren't offered or aren't a part of the beta track, and probably after hearing us talk about it on this show, It's kind of like, oh, well, now I can. Like, what am I going to get? Like, do I want to do this? Is it smart? And I think it's a really big fat maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
got to be careful. Be careful.
Yeah, the Pixel updates for sure, especially since, as we mentioned, like once you get on that Pixel update train, you are not getting off without a data wipe. So I think what is a fun time to be on the beta is pretty much close to release when most features are baked. Like after developer previews, because that's kind of after developer preview is when they get our like very rigorous feedback and they kind of like really fine tune the knobs and stuff like that. So I don't know, like the regular like beta release train. I don't know. Enjoy being up to date but stable. And then maybe when we're closer to Android 14. Next summer, if you're happy and you know it and you want some new features to show it, then you can do the beta pokey
and clap your hands.
Clap your hands. I'd say like summer, maybe like right like after developer previews. Yeah, I think it's a good time.
Yeah, I think you're right. If you really want to check it out, definitely don't jump in. I mean, literally, it's going to be like maybe a couple of months before suddenly the very earliest versions of the developer preview of Android 15 or whatever. Is it 14 or 15? I'm losing
14.
track. 14's next. I know at this point I'm losing track. I'm old. But yeah, don't jump right on at the very beginning.
I'm old, so fanfare. I'm old.
So, but congratulations that you have the phone, and you feel like this kind of opens the door for something that you didn't have access to before. That's got to feel pretty exciting, and it is fun. And it can be exciting running the beta software and kind of feeling like you're in on the party, before anybody else. Like there's some excitement to that. It's just, it does carry a bit of a gamble along the way. You can, mess up your device and have to start over. And that could either be a small deal or a very big deal, depending on how much you've got going on the device. So just keep that in mind. Beware.
I do miss the days, Jason, when you were rolling the dice more frequently.
Yeah. You
used to be, you were on the cutting edge of ROMs and you were installing betas and stuff like that.
That was a long time ago.
And I don't know if you're. By the way, Burke asked me if I can tune the mic settings, and so I'm checking that now. The Nothing app, but yeah, Jason, I feel like you definitely used to do this a lot more than what you do now. Now you're kind of you'll get on the beta track, but that's about it, right? So.
Yeah, well, I'm often even jumping on the dev preview track before the beta. If I'm reading enough, articles from enough people that, or the things that they're pointing out that are negative, I'm like, oh, well, I can live with that as long as it's not cutting off, data on my device or making it so that I can't make phone calls or whatever. Like if it's not a total deal breaker feature, then often I will just jump onto the dev preview. Because really at the end of the day, Google has made the reset process and the backup process so much easier than it ever was. I mean, back in the day when I was doing this stuff without, with reckless abandon, there was no beta or there was no backup, official backup system built into it. And so but I also had a lot more time, man. Like my kids were a lot younger. It's just now I feel like things are a little bit different. So I got to have a little bit more assurances if I'm going to do it now, because I don't have hour upon hour to sit in my living room, flashing things and re-logging into stuff and everything 3 times to get it right. So, yeah, just, life moves on. Life moves pretty fast.
Pretty fast.
And if you don't wait, how'd it go? If you don't, never mind.
If you don't stop, you might miss it, something like that. Yeah.
Thank you. You learn.
There we go. Who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll get back into rootin' and ramen again. See what's in that. No, I probably will not.
Rootin' and ramen, shucking and jiving. Oh man, now I sound real old. Shucking and jiving.
But we have reached the end of this episode. William, we should give you your goodbye. Thank you. And congratulations for being the email of the week. Yeah, we've reached the end of this episode of All About Android. It's great to be back. It's great to hang out with the two of you. Well, with the three of you, with Burke behind the board as well. Missed you all last week, so it's good to be back. what do you want to leave people with, Win?
Well, number one, 100. Like so happy, like at 100 that you're feeling better, and hope that you go up to 100% real soon.
Me too.
I am an Android dev, unsurprisingly, and I sometimes do technical content about Android development, and you can find all that on my website, Randomly Typing. And you can find me on a couple different doom scrolls at Queen Code Monkey, Instagram, the bird site. But you can also find me on Mastodon at Queen Code Monkey at mastodon.social. Man, that's a little bit different than the other ones. But yeah, if you want to find me there, you can find me there too.
That's right. Yeah, do we do that now?
I had to laugh last week because we mentioned Mastodon last week, and then like a whole bunch of y'all in the audience started following me, and I haven't logged into Mastodon in like years. So
someone called you out. I think Android faithful knew that like me and Jason and Leo were on Mastodon. Yep. So I was like, when are we gonna get Ron on Mastodon? So
I'm
already on it. I was on it from the get go, and guess what? It's not gonna replace Twitter. I'm sorry.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah, but anyway. But yeah, I'm also on there. I'm RonXO at mastodon.social or whatever nonsense it is. I'm also RonXO on Twitter still and on Instagram. But also I forgot to mention last week while we were flying solo without Jason. But if you want to listen to me on more podcasts, you can head over to ifanboy.com, where what was it? Earlier this month, we released the latest Mediasplode podcast, where if you were curious what my thoughts are around House of the Dragon and Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, we went in depth on both of those shows and talked about the dragons and the rings and the elves and the nonsense. So if you're looking for something else to listen to, head over to ifanboy.com. And it's a couple episodes down in the feed. It was from earlier this month, but it's definitely worth checking out. So please do listen to that. Thank you.
Do listen to that. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Win. Thank you to J.R. Raphael, Android Intelligence, always sending over those awesome tips. Today's tip kind of like I had literally had no idea that was hidden in Chrome. So thank you, JR, for finding those and sharing those. Thank you to Burke behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, occasionally talking. He does that sort of thing around here from time to time, bringing his puppy in, his cute puppy. Ridiculously cute puppy. Also, big thanks to Victor, also behind the scenes, and not here behind the scenes, but at home behind the scenes, making sure that you can download the podcast and get it in your podcatcher of choice. Thank you, Victor. You can find me at Jason Howell on Twitter. You can find me on Mastodon, twit.social/@JasonHowell. Pretty easy to remember.
No, it's not.
What?
Well, I mean, sort of. Twit.social/@JasonHowell. Yeah, it's too bad it's not just @JasonHowell. But Mastodon's different, I guess. Yeah. I mean, the alternative to that is, what is it? @JasonHowell @twit.social. So I don't know which is easier to say.
And this is why it's not going to replace Twitter. I'm sorry, but I'm all for it. I think it's great, but it's going to be good for like this techie corner of the world. But but
maybe that's all it needs to be.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know,
exactly.
It is having
the crazies out of it.
It is having early Google Plus, like Android Dev Days, we're just posting content, and because it's like longer than 280 characters, we can actually kind of talk about technical stuff without it being like, a thread or something. But I don't know. It's nostalgic, but yeah, I get you. It's different.
It is different. I would agree with that too. But anyways, if it's different and it sounds appealing, there you go. Now you know how to find us. Also, we do this thing called Club Twit here, which is a way for you to get all of our shows with no ads. It's a way for you to get extra show content that doesn't appear for people who are outside of the club. So Hands on Windows, Hands on Mac, Stacy's Book Club, whole bunch of fun stuff. And then it also gives you access to our Discord, which is another community space that we have that's just a lot of fun. Twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month. You can pay for a full year up front for $84 if you choose, but check it out. It's really important to what we're doing here at Twit, especially in the coming months, the coming year. Things are slowing down a little bit as far as the ad space is concerned. And this is one way to really help us out. So twit.tv/clubtwit. As for this show, You can find everything you need to know about All About Android if you go to our show page on the web, and it's a lot easier to remember than my Mastodon address. It is twit.tv/AAA. Go there. You can find all the ways to subscribe. All of our episodes are there. Everything you need to know, just go there, twit.tv/AAA. And with that, we will bid farewell to you. Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time on All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I am the host of Hands-On Photography here on Twit TV. I know you got yourself a fancy smartphone, you got yourself a fancy camera, but your pictures are still lacking. Can't quite figure out what the heck shutter speed means? Watch my show. I got you covered. Want to know more about just the ISO and exposure triangle in general? Yeah, I got you covered. Or if you got all of that down, you want to get into lighting, making things look better by changing the lights around you. I got you covered on that too. So check us out each and every Thursday here on the network. Go to twit.tv/hop and subscribe today.